just ahead of us there is the mouth of the River Ooze. Now, for those of you that might be thinking, yes, Paul and Rebecca, those famous YouTubers that explore old abandoned railways, canals, navigations and such, have finally come to my area. Well, it just so turns out that there are 7 River Ouzes in this country. Now, this particular one heads down from the Haywards Heath type area right down here to the coast at Newhaven, and today we're exploring the old navigation that it was. So on our little channel we do love exploring and telling you the story of old abandoned railways and canals and routeways, but they're often from post-industrial revolution. Well, today's story is from the very early industrial revolution, and maybe even before that to a degree. Now, people did move stuff up and down routeways then, but the biggest problem they had with this routeway was the fact it was actually a river. So the River Ooze, certainly this River Ooze here in Sussex, was mentioned as far back as records sort of allow, 1086, the Domesday Book, and thereon after many times, largely because of its inability to drain well, and all the meadows here that we're just walking past now used to flood a lot, and there were continued efforts to try and stop that. So if you imagine back down at Newhaven, where there is a huge breakwater, well, there didn't used to be that breakwater, and shingle bars used to settle in front of the entrance, and the entrance used to fluctuate all year round. So there were various attempts in the last 1,000 years to try and stop that from happening. Our first crossing of the day, and still navigable on using a car, despite the fact it looks like it's made from planks, but it's got all sorts of weird and wonderful, what do I call those, Rebecca? Like pier-like structures. I wonder if this was a very different thing a few years back. 1422, 1539, 1731, 1767. There were recorded attempts. Did you like that recollection?
That was well impressive.
There were recorded attempts to sort all these problems out, sort the meadows out. Yeah. Turns out that it was a swing bridge built in 1790. We'll come to the reason it was built in 1790 very shortly, because that's quite important, but I guess that's part of the mechanism. If you just walk over to the other side, you can see that the central pivot of the swing bridge is just over there on that section. So it's 1767, and industry around the country is starting to be taken a bit more seriously. And in this area, they had the River Ooze, and they've been trying to manage it in part for 800 years or so, perhaps more. So 1767, John Smeaton, an engineer, is tasked with trying to solve the problem, certainly of the meadows, and he comes up with a number of different solutions. But only one of them is taken up, which is basically the straightening out of large sections, which we've already seen back south of Lewes. We're now at Balcombe Mills, which is very beautiful, right?
It's very pretty, yeah.
There's probably a lot here we're not really understanding about what happened here. We maybe need to do a little bit more wandering and research. All right.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
Good. Well, I feel like there's a lot more at Balcombe Mills we haven't seen yet.
I think there's a lot.
Well, I can hear water,
Well,
a lot of water.
That way over the bridge.
And it looks a bit rickety, to be fair. The bridge is pinned about 25 times, got a massive crack down the middle, but looks quite canal-y. So maybe 1767 was a little bit too early for John Smeaton's plans, but within 20 years, 1788 in fact, William Jessup was tasked with trying to work out if the Ooze could be used as a proper navigation in perhaps a more canal-like sense. and he did. Within 6 months to a year or so, William Jessup has said that it could be navigated right up to Balcombe, I think towards Linford, Haywards Heath area, and it could be done 4 feet deep and up to 24 feet wide in places. That was perfect to carry vessels which could haul 30 tons or more. So we're just looking for a specific spot on the Ooze where we're going to show you a cut and some locks. And we've just come across the lavender line. Now I'd heard of the lavender line but didn't really know where it was, but
We've just found it.
by all accounts, yeah, Uckford to Lewis. And I think their goal is to join the two. But yeah, really beautiful. This little station, Isfield.
Oh yeah.
Should have paid attention. It's quite beautiful. It's closed today, as they always are when we turn up. I think that's like a...
I think this one might be
thing.
closed for a while actually, because there's another bigger sign that says we are closed. Please
Right.
check out our website.
So this is Isfield Church, very picturesque, probably about half a kilometre, maybe a kilometre away from any civilization, which rings a bell from the whole Dorset Lost Villages
Yeah.
video, doesn't it, where they
Church
moved,
nowhere.
church stayed where it was and they moved the village. Really picturesque church. What we're trying to find is the Ooze, as we said, and somewhere out the back here is a Mott and Bailey. Is that the right pronunciation?
Yes, I believe it is.
Ahead of us now, I think you can see some earthworks.
Yeah.
How we get there though, I've no idea.
Not sure.
Because we really wanted to show you, there's a cut and the locks and bits, and we were going to talk about the next stages of this navigation and what happened thereafter. Do you need a loo?
No, I'm alright, thanks.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Two things. Number one, what's that?
Don't know.
Back of a churchyard, kind of right down in the nook and cranny. Number two, private. There's a Mott and Bailey there. That's probably as old as the village itself. Next to the churchyard, there's the beautiful River Ooze down there, where there's a cut made 220 years ago. There's a lock just over there. There's pathways the other side of the river, but you have to go about 400 miles south or north to get to it. There's an old, what looks like abandoned road beside this church, which goes to nowhere. Well, there's a mystery in itself, but you can't get there because you know what? There's a landowner that doesn't want you to get there, despite the fact they're not using it for anything. Not even cattle grazing, no crops, nothing. Just a lovely open green grass and left fallow, but you can't go there because it's private.
You finished ranting?
Yeah.
Okay. Should we move on to what we're doing next?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just below me is Freshfield Lock, and it's in quite a state now. You might not even know it's here if you sort of walk past it and don't look hard. So come 1790, the navigation is underway. William Jessup chose Pinkerton, some contractors he'd already worked with, to make this navigable. It's overseen by the commissioners and the people that would eventually charge tolls on here. And by 1793 they decide that work is of substandard, it's not moving forward fast enough, I suspect, was their largest complaint. And they'd only made it to this point. Sheffield Bridge, which is around here somewhere, we can't find where it is because you can't walk anywhere, because we're in Sussex and England. They'd only made it here. So 3 years of canal building, some locks, no tunnels, no major earthworks, and they'd only made it to this point. There was a lot more to be done. Now, what to compound matters, come 1795, they were only taking in £230 a year on tolls from the navigation. Now bear in mind it cost £20,000 to build. That's nowhere near the kind of ratio of return you'd want on a profitable business. So 1797, the canal is in the hands of the receivers. It would take almost another 10 years to get things going. The appointment of William Smith, a geologist who worked on the Somersetshire Coal Canal, and a contractor willing to take part payment and the rest in shares and bonds. 1809, and we are now at Linford Mill, to the north of Haywards Heath. Things are finally moving forward. So we're nearing the end of today's journey. We've gone past Haywards Heath and Linfield, and I think that bit was abandoned from 1860 onwards. We've still got some of the story to tell. When we make these videos, we try and do the research of where all the bits are that you can still see today. And despite the fact that there are something like between 20 and 30 locks on this canal, we couldn't find them. I think we found one, haven't we, that we can get to. There's so many, or so much of this is on private land. So much of this part of the country is just not for the likes of you and I, unfortunately. We thought we'd see a lot more, I guess is what I'm trying to say to you. We're now, a good example of this is we're now at Rylands Lock, and we expected to see something maybe because it's quite a remote little part of this this country, and there's a nice cut of the navigation there. You can see the sides cut straight still, but once again, I don't know what that is. Perhaps some kind of water utility building or something. Do you reckon?
Something similar to that, isn't it?
And they've just trashed it completely. So there should be an old lock.
Basically,
it's just concrete sided, and it's a load of old. It sums today up, doesn't it? Really, it sums today up.
But on the upside, it's been lovely weather.
Yeah, we've had good weather. Yeah. And so the irony being that this navigation was said to help bring 10 million bricks over from the Netherlands up the navigation and help build the Balcombe Viaduct. And within 20 years of the London and Brighton Railway opening, this section of the canal, the navigation had been abandoned. Again, this part of the navigation, we've got sort of steep cut-in banks, nothing elaborate about it, no sort of real towpath because everything is flat the other side of it. And yeah, it's very steeply cut and straight all the way down here, which leads you to wonder where the original Ooze went. And I wonder if it's this field boundary here where it sort of meanders and curves, because this section ahead of us just goes straight, as you can see, right up to the Balcombe Viaduct. So what became of this navigation? Well, like so many others, or so many other canals, their demise was in the form of the railway. So we've already mentioned the London and Brighton Railway. Well, then there were 2 or 3 more that came, sort of replicated this navigation's journey, so it largely became pointless. The lower end of it, from Lewes down to Newhaven, well, that stayed open, I think, until 1950 on account that there were some significant cement works there. And even today, I think we saw a huge, great ship, didn't we?
Oh God, it's massive.
So I'm guessing it is still a port in its own right.
Like a ferry, in fact.
Could be. So ahead of us is the very beautiful Balcombe Viaduct, or the Ooze Valley Viaduct, or the Ooze Viaduct, whatever you want to call it.
I have to say, if you're ever in this area, come and see it. It is amazing.
And the navigation ends almost just before it, as far as we know, in terms of its furthest navigable point. I don't know if there was a small wharf there or something, but again, there's nothing really here. Rebecca tells me I need to apologise today because I've been quite grumpy, haven't I?
Yeah.
It's been a little bit underwhelming. We thought we'd find more, but we thought we'd tell you the story anyway because it's been quite interesting. But we thought we'd find more and more locks. There's probably some out there. We didn't find them in our research or our meanderings today, but there you go, we tried.
We did.
Yes. If you like the content that we do, the old railways, the canals, the navigation, the routes, then obviously click on that subscribe button, because not enough of you do. But we appreciate your time and your viewership nonetheless.
Yes, thank you.
So we'll see you next Sunday, 5 PM, British summertime. Ooh.